Right now on Denver 7 News at 7 a.m. on Local 3, the fentanyl crisis is impacting Colorado's youth. The tragic trend and how one family is hoping their loss will help others.
And we are still months away from the Marshall Fire investigation wrapping up, but a new lawsuit is already pointing fingers.
Plus, a Colorado couple travels to the border of Ukraine and Poland to help refugees, how they're supporting families fleeing the war and the scene that they're describing to us there.
And some better news of buses rescuing thousands of people from one of the major cities that was hit. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Brian Sanders.
And I'm Nicole Brady. Here at home, we're getting ready for some great weather in time to start the weekend. Meteorologist Lisa Hidalgo is keeping an eye on those clouds and the sun that's coming.
And it is, the sunshine's going to come this afternoon. Quite a bit of cloud cover right now here along, and I'm big again. You can see from our Lyman camera out east where there's quite a bit of cloud cover early on. You might see a few light rain showers, maybe a sprinkle or two here this morning. A lot of what is being picked up here on satellite and radar is going to be just cloud cover. In the mountains, still seeing some light snow, but that's going to clear up by this afternoon too. So at the bus stop this morning, clouds will be right around 40 degrees. It's actually pretty mild out there right now. More sunshine this afternoon, mid to upper 50s as your kids are getting home. Great looking start to the weekend, although a little on the chilly side compared to what we saw yesterday. Upper 50s to near 60 from Denver north to Fort Collins. Closer to Castle Rock and Parker, we'll see some low to mid 50s. 40s and upper 30s for the mountains this afternoon. Coming up, we are in for a really big warm up this weekend. We'll take a closer look at that. Much warmer tomorrow. Details here in just a few minutes.
And we do have some sloppy conditions in parts of the high country right now. Along I-70, you can see it actually in Vail right now, some of the slush that's along parts of I-70. It did have some snow showers up there early this morning. It looks like it's just going to be wet for you, and with some slush areas up on I-70. Take a look at the drive that's here in town. The big problem has been this crash on the westbound side of I-70 right at Havana, and from the CDOT camera back here at 225, you could still see some of the delays here on that westbound side, but all lanes are open. The drive time reflects it. It is getting a little bit better in there, still about 30 minutes, also affecting northbound 225 up from Colfax, so some extra time needed. Colfax might not be a bad option for you, or 47th Avenue, or even 56th Avenue to get around it. The rest of the drive, pretty standard, and no other big issues.
Well, overnight, we got some pretty scary pictures into our newsroom showing why a plane was forced to make an emergency landing at DIA. Take a look at this. It's a plane's windshield, and you can see it's completely shattered. A passenger tells us it happened during the flight. The Delta flight was on its way to Washington, D.C. from Salt Lake City. A passenger took the photo and said the crew told passengers the window had just shattered spontaneously. In a statement, Delta Airlines said the flight, quote, experienced a maintenance issue mid-flight. Our team worked quickly to accommodate customers onto a new plane, and we sincerely apologize for the delay and inconvenience.
More Colorado families are dealing with heartbreaking losses because of fentanyl-laced drugs. The parents of a 1-year-old girl are now facing charges for her death after she was found with fentanyl in her system. And then within hours, we learned about 2 teens who died from fentanyl poisoning. We want to bring in Denver 7's Jessica Crawford this morning because the parents of one of those teens has a message to others before it's too late.
That's right. Sadly, Alameda High School has announced the death of student Kimberly Jimenez Figueroa, and her parents are saying that her death is linked to fentanyl. They're hoping that sharing that information could help save the lives of other students. And that school is going to have counselors on site today to help students who are grieving. A hard time for students, a very hard time for those parents. And this is not the only suspected fentanyl death to have taken place recently here in the metro. Hours after we learned this information, the Highlands Ranch High School confirmed the death of Ty Burns, who was recently enrolled there as an 11th grader. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office told Denver 7 it's still an open investigation, but investigators do believe the 17-year-old's death is the result of a drug overdose and that fentanyl is involved. And we just learned that this terrible drug claimed the life of a Brighton infant back in January. Now her parents are facing charges. Prosecutors say Alonzo Montoya and Nicole Cassius did drugs in the home before and after the 1-year-old's death. That little girl's blood contained 10 times the amount of fentanyl that could kill an adult. So what's being done about this? Well, local lawmakers have introduced a bill to try to save lives from fentanyl, but people are concerned that it won't be enough. Live in Denver, I'm Jessica Crawford, Denver 7.
Thank you, Jessica. And it isn't just in Colorado. Deadly overdoses caused by fentanyl have skyrocketed across the country in the past few years. A new study from the DEA shows just how widespread the problem is. The study found the number of illicit pills containing fentanyl seized by U.S. law enforcement jumped more than 4,000% over the last 3 years. The DEA says more than 42,000 fentanyl-laced pills were seized in 2018 compared to 2 million last year.
The Boulder County Sheriff's Office says it could still take several more months before we know for sure what caused the Marshall fire. Investigators are working with experts from around the country to analyze evidence. That includes following up on nearly 200 tips from the community and interviewing witnesses and victims. Once that investigation is finished, evidence will be shared with the district attorney's office to determine if charges are warranted. And while the cause is under investigation, Xcel Energy is facing a lawsuit claiming the utility company is at least partly responsible. The lawsuit filed by an unnamed couple and a Boulder-based company alleges Xcel power lines and equipment were a factor in the fire's origin and spread. We spoke to the lawyer who filed the suit. He says he plans to prove Xcel was negligent.
The main detail is we've uncovered witnesses who actually witnessed the origin of the fire, and those witnesses have not only pinpointed the fire, but they've pinpointed the location underneath power poles that were maintained by Xcel Energy, that are the property of Xcel Energy.
Yeah, Xcel says its equipment in the area was properly maintained and inspected, and says they have not seen any evidence that a power line ignited the fire.
The Loveland Police Department faces a new lawsuit this morning, accusing officers of pulling over and citing or arresting potentially drunk drivers, and then later the drivers are cleared of the charges. This body camera video is from January of 2020. Harris Elias says he was driving home from a dinner party at his girlfriend's house. He was pulled over, arrested, and cited for drunk driving, but blood tests showed there was nothing in his system. Now he wants to make sure police departments don't have incentives for certain types of arrests.
It takes a lot to stand in integrity and say, hey, I made a mistake. And it's what I would expect from a 7-year-old. And it's what I expect from the chief of police.
Every day in America, district attorneys dismiss cases. That happens. That does not mean that the person arrested was falsely arrested or unlawfully arrested.
However, the lawsuit is looking for $1.5 million in damages for Elias and for police policy changes. Well, the water is finally back on for about 85% of the town of Empire. A boil water order is still in effect. The town has been without reliable water for more than a week now. Officials say they found a pipe leak on a private property. They've also upgraded the filtration system. Meanwhile, the town is still offering bottled water to residents.
Well, Russia has opened a humanitarian corridor in the besieged city of Mariupol, and authorities say some 2,000 people are now on buses being evacuated. An estimated 100,000, though, are still trapped there. Many have been living with little food or water for weeks now. However, Ukrainian officials say Russian forces have not been allowing aid supplies to reach the city. Russian forces, meanwhile, have handed back control of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant to Ukraine. They've been occupying the site since February. There are reports Russian troops may have suffered radiation sickness after digging trenches in contaminated areas. NATO's chief warns Russian forces are not withdrawing, but repositioning. They believe they're regrouping in Belarus and plan to launch more attacks.
The United Nations says more than 4 million people have fled Ukraine since Russia's invasion.
And after watching these families facing such difficulties, a Castle Rock couple decided to fly to the Poland-Ukraine border to lend a hand. Here's Denver 7's Ivan Rodriguez.
At the Polish border, refugees from Ukraine arrive daily by the tens of thousands.
Quite an emotional experience when you see the people come across.
And are met by people like Ralph and Deborah Yatsko. They're from Castle Rock and felt a need to help. Where are you along the Polish-Ukraine border, and what are you seeing from the ground?
Right now, we are actually in Shemish. Ralph and I are staying. That's where we're staying. And it's about 14 miles from the border.
Since last Saturday, they've been volunteering with World Central Kitchen, providing meals for refugees already in Poland and those waiting to cross.
They're often waiting in Ukraine to come across for 7 hours, 10 hours. So there will also be people that will take carts over. They'll take carts of sandwiches or something to drink to the other side.
A draining experience filled with long hours, but one they know is making a difference.
Tiredness we feel at the end of the day is still probably nothing compared to what some of these folks are going through. You see the looks on people's faces when you give them some food or drink when they've had such a long journey and they're exhausted. You could see some relief, come over them. And that's very, fulfilling to see.
Although they'll be returning to Colorado in a week, they'll never forget the people they've met or the resolve they've shown.
They're not going to be stopped by what's going on, by what the Russians are doing.
I hope and pray that the war ends, that these people can go back to rebuild their lives.
Ivan Rodriguez, Denver 7.
World Central Kitchen was founded in 2010 by celebrity chef Jose Andres following the earthquake in Haiti. A new study shows a promising treatment for viruses, how ultraviolet lights could be the answer to curing COVID and more.
And concert season returns to two of Colorado's favorite venues, the music you can enjoy this season.